Hey guys, creepypasta Central here, and this is the Ben Drown story. I don't know how many parts this is gonna be in, so I guess I'm probably gonna have a little bit of pretty much a couple parts because this is a long story. So, without further ado, here is Ben Drown Part 1. Okay, LXL, I need your help with this. This is not a copy pasta, this is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could be very depend on this video game related, specifically Majora's Mask. And this is the creepiest shit that ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room, such as sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all of those old games of my youth that I haven't touched at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller, um, and a rather shoddy shade of Super Smash Brothers, and white beggars couldn't be choosers. Needless to say, I couldn't take it until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods, about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals and from ignorant parents. I ended up getting a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and two other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I had begun to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still had no idea why it did. There was no cars there, and the only one table was set up was random junk on it. But something sort drew me there. I usually trusted my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd if you asked me to tell you why I thought it was displeasing. I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on the edge, and I can't explain it. All I can tell you this is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there would be other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and I immediately noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes, his right eye, and had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look to his left eye instead of trying not to offend, and ask him if he had any old video games. I was already wondering if I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he could tell me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said there's a few in an old box, and he has assured me he'll be back in a jiffy. And he turned his head back to the garage as I watched him hobble away. I couldn't help but notice when he was selling on his table. Littered across the table were rather particular paintings, voracious artworks that looked like ink blobs that a physicist might show you. Psychiatrist, I forgot how to say that. Might show you. Curious, I looked through them, and it was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. They weren't exactly aesthetical pleasing. I came to the last one for some reason it looked like the Majora's Mask, the same heart-shaped body, the little spikes prudent outward. Instantly, I thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at one of these garage sales, some fraudulent bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blobs. But given these events that happened afterward, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up and I saw the old man was suddenly there again, arms length in front of me, smiling at me. I admit I jumped out of my reflex and I laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was a standard gray color, except that someone had written Majoro in a black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a condescendence it was and asked him how much he wanted it for. The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free. That used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man phrased that, but I didn't really pay any attention to them. Then I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free. I remind myself to be a bit skeptical since it looked pretty shady cartridge, and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version, and that was all I needed to be back on cloud nine. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me, wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I was nagging the doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked fine, and there were only one save file simply named Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent, and obviously going senile. And I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He almost all the masks, the 3 out of 4, and 3 out of 4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he used an owl statue to save his game and he was on day 3, and by the Stone Tower Temple with hardly an hour left. Before the moon would crash, I remember thinking that I was ashamed that he came so close to beating the game, but just never finished it. I made a new file named Linked out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady looking cartridge, I was impressed how smoothly it ran. Literally, just like a retail copy of the game save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at some times the NPCs would call me Link, would call me Link, and other times they would call me Ben. Figure it just was a bug, a fluke in the program caused our files to get mixed up or something. It did creep me out though after a while. And it was around after I'd beaten the Woodfall Temple. I regretfully went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect of the game original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway. Hoping that it would solve the problem, it did. It didn't. It did and it didn't. Now NPCs wouldn't call me anything. Where my name should be in the dialogue were just a blank space. My save file name is still called Link though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for the day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the lens of truth and working my way toward completing the Snowhead Temple. Now some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those who don't, you can Google it. But the list of it is just right as the clock. It's just about ready to hit 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. On the final day, you can talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope, and if you time it right, the countdown disappears, and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Decidedly to do the glitch, I try and finish the Snowhead Temple. I happen to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappears. However, When I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in Majora's boss fight room at the end of the game. The trippy boxed in the arena, staring at the Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just floating in the midair above me. And the background music which was regular for the arena, but still creepy. Immediately my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, and no matter where I went, Skull Kid always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though. This kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game must have been bugged or something, but I beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach for the reset button, then when a text appeared on my screen, you're not sure why. Then you apparently had a reservation. Instantly recognized the text. You got a message from when you get the room key from the Anju at the stock pot inn. But why was the planet here? I refused to enter the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started navigating the room again, testing to see if there was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was to even think that could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appears on the screen, and again, like the first one, it was ready a pre-existent phase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss? Yes or no? I paused for a second, competing what I could press and how the game would react when I couldn't, and I realized that I couldn't select no. Taking a deep press, I pressed yes. The screen faded to white with the words "Dawn of a New Day" with the subject line, a couple lines beneath it. Where I was ported to follow me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I have ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of inexplainable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even knew existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clock Town. I walked out of Clock Tower as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all the inhabitants were gone. Usually with the fourth day glitch, you can still find the guards and the dog that runs outside the tower. This time they're gone. What replaced them was the tower. This time they were all gone. What was replaced with them was an ominous feeling that there was something out there and in the same area as me, and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bell. But at this point, I wasn't even concerned for my avatar. I felt that I personally was some kind of danger. Perhaps the chilling thing was the music. It was a song of healing ripped straight from the game itself. It but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up, so as if you would expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did. The constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then I hear the faint laugh of the happy masked salesman in the background. Just quiet enough so I wasn't sure if I was hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of the clock town only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clock Town had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time, I remember standing in the middle of Clock Tower, realizing that I had never felt so alone in a game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination out of place textures and the strong atmosphere and the haunted melody of the once place peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted. But I was really on the urge of tears. I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something has gripped me from here. And this powerful sense of depression and that both foreign and crippled. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the song of time or the song of Soren, it would say your notes echo far, but nothing happens here. But by this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave. But I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran toward the pool, then that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me. Not Link. Not Link. Me with the Soul Kid screaming playing in the background. When the scream returned, I was staring at Link's statue playing the song of Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me. With a haunted facial expression, I turned around and ran out. And black into the south clock tower. To my horror, the fucking statue followed me, and the only way I can compare this like a weeping angel from Doctor Who. Every so often, at random individuals, the animation would play the statue appearing behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or I don't even want to fucking say it. It was haunting me. But this time I was on the verge of hysterics. But not even once did the thought of turning off the concert occur to me. I don't even know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terrified felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would really appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin making weird animations I'd never seen him do before. He would fail his arms around or spams randomly over the screen would cut to the Happy Mask salesman smiling at me again for a brief second before I face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo and ran back. I don't know why, but the panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one. But as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I stared at the statue waiting to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed to the happy masked salesman, and Link turned to face my screen, standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me alone with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left on the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo, terrified. Suddenly the game warped me into an underground tunnel that the reverse song of healing quanked up again as I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue appeared behind me again. This time aggressively, I could only take a few steps before I was summoned behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel, appeared in the southern clock tower as I ran aimlessly in sheer panic. Suddenly, a red dead screamed, and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, and the lines appeared again. The screen faded, and I was standing on the top of the clock tower with the skull kid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up, and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. Skull Kid was just staring at me hauntingly that with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. The Stone Tower Temple theme was replayed in reverse. In some sort of inspired attempt, I equipped my bow and fired a shot to Skull Kid, and it actually hit him and played an animation reeling back. I fired again and on him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again on the third arrow, a text box saying, "That won't do you any good." He he he. I I was picked up from the ground, levitating upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I never seen this move used by anyone in this game. The Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skull Kid laughed and the screen faded to black. Only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge at him, but the same thing happened to me. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force, and he immediately burst into flames again, killing him. This time during the death scenes, the faint sounds of the reverse song could be heard. On my turn and final attempt, I noticed that there was no music playing this time. There was eerie silence. I remembered that the original encounter with the Skull Kid, you're supposed to use the Ocarina, or either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted playing the song time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body, once again horrified, exploded into flames as he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground, dead in a position I had never seen in the game before. This head was tilted towards the camera, with the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do is just stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades into a message. You met a terrible fate, haven't you? Before kicking you out of the title screen. Upon getting back up, the title screen and started again. I noticed my save was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced. Your turn. Your turn had 3 hearts, no mask, and no items. Your turn was immediately when I did. I selected your turn, and immediately when I did, I returned to the clock tower rooftop, seeing my Link dead and the Skull Kid hovering with the button, with the Skull Kid laughing, looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted back up, there was one more file added below your turn, entitled Ben. Ben's file is right back where it was before. I deleted it at the Stone Tower Temple with the moon almost crashing. I turned the game off at this point. I had superstitious, but in a way too fucked up, even for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing in my head, and just remembering a scene of dread. I felt exploring Clocktown drove me back to the old man's house today to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way, I was going there alone. Only to find there's a for sale sign in front of the yard. When I rang the doorbell, no one was home.